Welcome, everybody, to Above the Fold by Brafton. Got Jeff and Francis here. Jeff, the SEO guy. Francis, Francis, what do you do again?
I'm the creative guy. I'm the guy that talks about content, creative ideas. I'm more open-minded than Jeff. I have a lot of other great qualities that Jeff does not have.
It's pretty vague. Open-minded, great qualities. So in other words, you don't actually measure the quality of what you do. You don't actually show any sort of return. Just like you're basically just a starving artist.
I'm not a starving artist. I'm the guy that makes other people feel better about numbers and hard data that, you can't communicate well to the other side.
It's good to talk to you, buddy. Well, in other news, everybody, we're going to be doing this once per week. We originally planned to do twice per month, but Francis, how do you feel about actually committing to something once per week? Has that ever worked before?
I can't say that. I don't know, honestly. The other times I've done something on a weekly basis, things that come to mind are the gym, maybe reading. I don't know, but I keep up with it for a while and then I end up breaking it. So it'll be interesting to see how we handle this on a weekly basis. I wasn't prepared to talk to you this much in a month. And now that it's going to be, once a week, I'll have to change my meds.
You have to change your meds? Wow.
That's what it takes to talk to you, Jeff Baker. That's basically how the magic happens. That's enough, man. Let's stop subjecting people to this to this banter. As our loyal listeners know, we go through 3 different topics. Before each one, we have a 20-second download, and that means one of us asks the other a question. That person has 20 seconds to kind of, vomit any ideas or thoughts they have on that thing. Last week, we tried something where we gave people a heads up as to what topics we would be discussing right now. And we do it in like vague terms. So our 3 this week are content types, audience, competitors. Very, very vague and very boring topics, or at least phrases. Not like last week when we still had dumpster fire, which is still hilarious to me. Regardless, they're vague for a reason. So, Jeff, you are up first. Are you ready for your first 20-second download?
Give me my download. Let's go.
And as always, I have to time this because I need something to help me time 20 seconds. So here we go. Jeff Baker. My audience only needs white papers. Why is that wrong? Go.
Well, it might not necessarily be wrong. I mean, if they've done all the research and they found out that's where their content gaps exist. Like, for example, if they've gone through the analytics and found that people are only coming in top of funnel and then nobody's actually, getting nurtured down to the bottom of the funnel and they're not getting anybody into their email nurture program, then maybe that's possible. However, if you're just saying, I need white papers without any data.
Stop.
I ran out of time there.
You totally ran out of time. You said, however, and then the clock said 19 seconds. You were screwed, man. You had way too much, the prologue was way too long there.
It was, there was way too much setup for that. You're right.
Anyway, so get to the however part. However.
All right. So, however, if you've done your research and you found that going through the analytics, and you have to go through the analytics to determine what type of content you need to be creating, so that you can get an idea of where people are moving throughout the funnel. And I know the funnel is like a way overused term that people are constantly talking about. Oh, I need more MoFu content. It's obnoxious, just like all of the acronyms that are popping up and all the buzzwords in content marketing on a daily basis, it seems. This one actually holds true, and you can really map it out in analytics. You can see where people are dropping off. So you can see that, all right, for example, when we first started on Brafton.com, started doing a true to life marketing program, our top of funnel was huge. I mean, like 75% of all of our visitors were coming in via the blog, and then they're dropping off. So obvious problem there is that we were getting people in the door and then we were doing absolutely nothing with them. So at that point, we decided, all right, we need some middle of funnel content, which would be, like you said, white papers or eBooks, stuff like that. Basically a piece of content that gets them a little bit further down the funnel and gets them into like an email marketing program. It gets them to understand that we create stuff that's a little bit more in depth than simply blog content. And then at the bottom of the funnel, obviously, is like case study testimonials and stuff like that. But you can see it right in your Google Analytics. You can see where people come in, you can see where people drop off, and you can see a very, very glaring hole a lot of times is conversions. And that's like middle of funnel, bottom of funnel stuff. So if you see that there is a huge gap there, then yeah, you're missing that piece of content.
So first of all, where did the funnel who decided it had to be a funnel?
I don't know.
Let's just go real basic here, man. But like, I agree. It's if everyone talks about the funnel and blah, blah, blah. I always wondered that where the hell did the funnel come from? Anyway,
it's
about the holes.
Let's tangent.
About like,
let's tangent on a funnel and just various shapes. We can use different types of shapes here. I'm kind of sick of the funnel, to be honest with you.
I mean, but if you mention another shape, it's you have to explain the shape, and then you're back to like square one of kind of educating people. Oh, this is what this means. Everyone's aware of the funnel. It's part of the world now. I don't think there's anything that we can do to change that.
You don't want to reinvent the funnel today.
I would love to reinvent the funnel, but maybe not. Maybe not today.
All right, save it for later. That's fine.
But you're right. I mean, I think
you want to know where the funnel started. It's basically the idea that you're going to have 100 people come to your website, 10 of which are actually interested in your product, and therefore the top of the funnel is 100. And as you go down to a funnel narrows towards the bottom, you're narrowed down to 10 people. And then of those 10 people, one person actually wants to contact the sales team. So you've got one person. So it's just the idea of a lot going down to a little. And our simple minds like shapes that make sense of things. And I think the shape that makes the most sense in this instance is a funnel.
I know it's visual. I can see it. We talk about funnels every day. That's all I'm saying.
And, yeah, go
ahead. But going back to what you said about identifying gaps in the funnel, in this shape that our simple minds love, figuring out the types of content, like you just said, it's all about going from 100 to 1. How do you ensure that one gets there? How do you know, going back to like the type of content that pushes people along that funnel? Is it the same content every time? Is it depend on the audience? Let's dig in there a little bit.
I mean, there's no silver bullet. You can't just say, all right, we're missing middle of funnel content because people aren't moving from the blog to do anything else on the site. So we need to create an ebook, just full stop. I think there's a lot, and I know there is a lot of guess and check and iterations. So we've created ebooks that completely flat out bombed. We did one on ABM. You remember about 6 months ago, a year ago, when ABM, for those of you that aren't aware, account-based marketing became the latest buzzword in content marketing. Yeah. Okay. So we decided we were going to jump on that train and create an ebook called "What is ABM? Is it right for you?" Well, turns out it wasn't right for our audience, and nobody cared. We had like maybe a few downloads at best in that ebook. So, I mean, that's going to happen. You're going to have a couple foul balls, you're going to have a couple embarrassing swings where you look like I'm not going to go there. You're just going to look like an idiot. So that's part of it. And that's part of like mapping what your audience wants to what you can actually create. So that was a mess. And on the flip side of things, we created an ebook that was 8 types of infographics that you should be creating for your audience. That was a huge hit. We got more downloads off of that than anything in the 10 years of the history of Brafton. So sometimes you just don't know until you try a few things. And when you try a few things, that's when you figure it out.
Does it ever go beyond that? I think what you said, guess and check, though. Is it always going to be guess and check? Is there a point where the guessing is less and there's knowledge that kind of grows out of that?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it is to create, you have to create content and you have to start to collect data. And that's why I collect data on every single piece of content that we send out there, and we can establish some sort of trends. So, for example, we've sent out a bunch of ebooks last year. We send out 2 per month, and we've seen trends where people obviously don't want to talk about ABM. But they do really want to download books on email marketing. And they really want to download ebooks on infographics, which is kind of a no-brainer. I mean, we're visual creatures. We're dumb visual animals, and we respond to visual stimulus 10,000 times faster than text stimulus, which is why I like ebooks better than white papers. I don't want to digress there. But so you have to create stuff, and you have to measure the results of it, and then establish some sort of trends and benchmarks so you understand what people like. And then in the future, you can create more stuff along that vein, because now you know what your audience likes. And we know our audience does not care about ABM.
And funny enough, we also know that you like ebooks more than white papers. I want to know that. You're at the bar. Why do you choose the ebook craft beer and not the white paper craft beer? What is it about ebooks that warms the belly?
Ooh, I really like that you applied that to my personality, my personal interest there. You mapped that straight across to my love for craft brews and my snobbery for good beer.
I do what I can.
But you know what? I'm still rubbed a little bit raw from Boston. You guys drink nothing but Bud Light out there. Walking through Southie.
Untrue.
No, absolutely true. Walking down Southie.
Well, you mentioned Southie. Now I back off, but okay, go on.
Yeah, all right. Well, now you're going to couch your answers. Okay. Walking through Southie, even when it was 1 degree out, I'd see dudes walking around in moccasins and 230 racks of Bud Light down the street in -1 degree temperatures. And then I wouldn't see them for 6 months until it got warm again. That could be another topic. Let's save beer discussions. We're visual creatures. We respond to visual stimulus much, much faster than text stimulus. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. So our actual attention span now has been documented at 8.25 seconds, which is shorter than a goldfish. So we need to respond accordingly to the fact that we are getting more and more ADD, and we're already visually wired. So that's natural fit for an ebook. Ebook is like a combination of a white paper and an infographic. People don't make me think, just entertain me. That's the kind of concept here. Just let me skim through and pull out the facts that I'm interested in, because I'm not going to sit there and read an entire white paper. So I think white papers have a place. However, in the world of people just moving faster and faster and faster, and our predisposition to wanting to see visual stimulus, that's just a perfect place for ebooks. So that's why I prefer ebooks, and we don't do many white papers.
I understand. I'm with you in terms of they're visually striking. Being able to skim or read through the information fairly quickly, page by page. There's also less words per page in an ebook than there is a white paper. That being said, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. There's an authority, I think, that comes from a white paper that an ebook technically doesn't have. Now, granted, you lose the visual. You could make an argument that there could be a chart or a graph or whatever, just to kind of show the data of a white paper, but not as much as an ebook would have. That being said, I do think there's a preconceived authority that a white paper already has that can make sense in certain situations or for certain, industries or clients. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. And I think certain topics just lend themselves to longer form content, and a little bit more. You would think a white paper is a little bit more in depth. It's a little bit more data heavy. So that's fine. You can still write those pieces of content. However, I think that when you write the white paper, you should keep those ideas that we just talked about in mind when writing it, and make sure that it's super visual too. So you can have a white paper that isn't just big old blocks of text like the old school white papers we think of when you think of a white paper. You can have white papers that have tons of charts and graphs and visuals that help to explain whatever it is that you're talking about in a way that makes it a little bit more palatable for people. So you can kind of do a blend of an ebook and a white paper so that you meet your audience halfway.
So takeaways from this, the audience only needs a white paper. Why is that wrong? I mean, what are the takeaways, Jeff, from you?
Well, we weren't able to reinvent the funnel, so we're going to still use the funnel and just use the concept of that funnel to map across to the types of content. So know that your blog exists at the top of the funnel. Nobody goes to a blog with purchase intent. So that's just going to be everybody coming in, and there's going to be very few qualified people. You need middle of funnel content, which is ebooks, white papers, any sort of giveaway asset that talks about some concept in depth and proves that you know what you're talking about and gives something of value to the reader. That's middle of funnel content that's going to get them into your email nurture, and it's going to get some sort of credibility into your name. You can identify that in Google Analytics if you see people dropping off after the blog and not doing anything else. Bottom of funnel content, that's testimonials, case studies, anything that's like proof of concept that says, yeah, you can do what you say that you're going to do. And you will see that in Google Analytics, again, if people are visiting those pieces of content and then afterwards, in a sequence, contacting sales or submitting some sort of macro commercial conversion. So use your Google Analytics to your advantage because that funnel exists and it maps across to the types of content that you're creating. All right, let's jump into your download.
Okay.
Are you ready for your download, Francis?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me get my stopwatch ready. And question coming at you.
All right.
Francis, dude, where's my audience and what the hell do they want? Go.
Your audience is out there, man. They want to hear from you. It's likely because maybe you aren't talking to them in the right sort of context, that you're in the wrong room. Your audience is in another room. You have to find a way into the room your audience is at. And you are likely maybe not even listening. I always think there's more time.
You jumped into like a mystery house here. Your audience is in a room and you're in another room, and it was the butler with the knife and you got to put the pieces together. What was that?
I don't know, man. I was just trying to, I mean, we talked about like visually and just thinking the idea that, you're trying to reach something that isn't there, or that, basically what you just said, where is my audience? And that brought me into a location kind of mindset. And I'm thinking the audience, that they're somewhere else and you're somewhere else and you're not connecting. I don't know. That's where I was at. And then I lost time. So
you lost your audience, you lost your time. I lost all train of what you were thinking about. All right. So you kind of like, explain the situation again, but you didn't tell me where is the audience and what do they want. So tell me a little bit about what happens when you can't find your audience and what they want and how to find it.
When you break it down to like, you can't find the audience, or maybe the better thing is the audience that you're trying to reach isn't engaged with you, or they're not interacting with the content that you're putting out there. I think you end up asking questions, who am I actually writing to? What is the tone? What is the voice? What topics have we kind of started and are going to continue to write on? Because what the data, and I'm jumping into your pond a little bit here, is telling us that based on pond. Interaction, I'm just there for a little bit, toes in the pond. That's it. That something's wrong. They are not interacting with it at all. Goes back to your ebook that you put out about ABM and how it bombed. I mean, clearly, audience had a resounding nope, no thank you, and walked away. What I'm getting at is that being able to listen, listening to your audience, either through data or actually listening to them if they write in or if they, talk to you. And finding out what they want is important, because otherwise you will never reach your audience if you are, quite frankly, talking to the wrong audience. So
you've worked with probably in excess of 1,000 clients at this point. How do you know when you're missing your audience, or when you're in a different room, as you put it? How do you know? Like, is it data that's telling you that? Is it the client that's telling you that? When do you know when you're swinging and missing?
I mean, sometimes it's a mix. Sometimes there's no data whatsoever, and it's the client that's telling us that we're missing missing the audience. And that goes into another conversation about like, well, is that true? Is the audience that we're trying to hit actually the prospects, and we have to give it some time, or is the client right? We've actually completely missed the mark, and we're not following along where we should be. We're going off brief, so to speak. But the other part is the data, like the data could be telling us that, wow, this one blog post, 0 shares, 0 traffic going to this. I mean, first reaction, if it's 0, is there something up with the website or something like that? But that's where the data can kind of come in and kind of help inform, Funny enough, I've had the situation where the data says one thing and a client says another, and you have to kind of find that middle ground, between the client's expectations and what data is telling everybody.
Yeah. And that's kind of interesting that you bring up the data, because there is, you can get to a certain place with the data. You can get halfway there, I'd say, by looking at visitor personas. So, and I say visitor personas specifically versus your buyer personas, because they are two totally different groups, which we could probably get into at some point, but they are skip that, Barry. They are two very different groups. And you can pull that out of Google Analytics. So if you got your demographics data enabled, you can look through and see what percentage of your audience is male versus female, what percentage of your audience is coming from different age groups, and what are they doing. So for example, Brafton.com, we found that we've got 2 very specific personas. One of them is the male age group 25 to 34, and they're the most likely to submit contact us conversions. So that's like our money maker. We want to speak to a salesperson and we want to learn more about your products. And then we've got a similar demographic of females 35 to 44 who are the most likely to subscribe to our newsletter. They're actually twice as likely to subscribe to our newsletter. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So they're our more loyal reader that's most likely to read our blog content. So we knew that with our blog, we had to adjust our content accordingly and learn a little bit more about that 35 to 44 demographic to write content that's going to resonate with them. So that's as far as we can get. I mean, these are just numbers and basic ideas. A 35 to 44-year-old woman doesn't tell us what they're into. It doesn't tell us what they like. All we know is their age group and the gender that they have chosen when setting up their Google Plus profile. So from that point forward, it's kind of, I'd say, on you guys to figure out some of the nuances.
And those nuances is kind of, you're right. It's where creative lives and breathes. I mean, beyond, male visitors versus female visitors, digging deeper into that, finding out, well, what exactly are they interested in? What topics are resonating with either group? And, how do we kind of mitigate that? How do we write those topics well, ensuring that we're hitting the right audience? And then it goes back to the idea of, the goal, the point. I mean, you mentioned, based on the data, for whatever reason, the male group is more likely to convert. That's what you said, right? In terms of
they're more likely to submit contact us information and speak with a salesperson. Yeah, correct.
Right. So if that's the case, I mean, I think that's where the mix exists. You have to have enough for either group, because at the end of the day, the conversions is what you want. That being said, the fact that people are reading the newsletter, that people are interacting with the blog, that helps in the sense of brand recognition, the idea of what a brand is, their reach, who they are, perception. I think that's the word I was trying to get out. That's important too. The nuance of both. I mean, it doesn't mean one blog post is going to be able to do both of those at the same time. There is a middle ground, and I think that does exist. And I think that's why, quite frankly, content marketing is hard to do well, and why it takes time. There isn't. You've said this before. There isn't one blog post. There isn't one word or phrase that's a silver bullet that's able to kind of dictate. Oh, this is exactly how it's going to work, and so on. Otherwise, everyone would be doing this, and our jobs would be easier. But anyway, I think that gray area you're identifying, I think that's where creative does live, and you can have a lot of hits and misses with that.
So last question, tell me a little bit about when you have to tell a client they have to eat a little bit of humble pie. Like, you're looking at the data and this happens. So this is an important topic. Yeah. You're looking at the data and it says they're coming to you and they're saying, well, our buyer personas are 50 plus 50 plus executive women coming from San Francisco. And you're looking at the people that are actually visiting your website in demographics. And no, it's not them reading your content. It's actually 25 to 34-year-old men from Arkansas, right?
Okay.
It may draw the connection here. Your buyer may be never visiting your website, and it's likely the other group that's visiting your website that's bringing Brafton or your client to the actual buyer, and they're the ones that are buying. So you've got your client who thinks that they're writing for their buyer demographic when in fact they never even visit the website. So how do you reconcile that with a client?
So first of all, I've definitely handled these types of conversations wrongly in the past. What I will say is that, going in there, fire and fury, saying like, actually, you're wrong. Here's the data. That never works. No one likes to hear that they're wrong. Let's just get that out there. I think the approach is that you start talking about market and you start talking about the marketplace and the fact that, client, you're right. Your persona, your buyer persona is that, that's who's coming in your sale. I mean, let's just assume that it's their persona and they are actually seeing that in their sales, that when they maybe do some, questions after, post sale and everything like that, that is the persona that seems to be buying. But if the data is saying something else, there's an argument and a conversation to be had that there is another corner of this market space that seems to be emerging, and to ignore it is ignoring money, is ignoring another kind of revenue stream that if you tapped into can only help. Now the other question goes into, well, how do you write that one blog post that will reconcile both those groups? The answer is you can't. From Arkansas, San Francisco, two different age groups and genders, if I remember correctly, you're not going to be able to reconcile that. But you can start including, it expands the marketplace for you. Maybe this goes back to what we first talked about, white paper versus ebook versus blog. You know what? The blog could be for Arkansas. Maybe the ebook is for San Francisco, but they're both coming in in different entry points with money in their pocket.
To wrap this thing up, I think you mentioned a couple really good points. When having these types of conversations, either with yourself or with your superior, use the data. So the data says this. You're saying this based on a hunch. The data is showing this. And always mention the money. Make a tie back to money. It's important to, when you're working with a client or you're working with your boss that you're trying to convince, show them how it connects back to money, and show that what you're doing isn't driving any revenue and it isn't driving conversions. Here's an audience that's actually converting all the time, and here's an audience that you think we should be writing to that's never converting. And you can't argue with the numbers. So
no, it's the great equalizer. The fact that when you start talking about revenue and money, suddenly that it starts to kind of like even out and like, okay, something's happening here. We should at least hear this out. If you go, and I've done that before when I've had that conversation without mentioning money, it turns into almost like an ideological preference. Like, I think when you can back that up with something like, cash, it changes the conversation immediately. Let's go on to our third, man, and this is going to be for you. Are you ready for the third 20-second download?
All right, dude, hit me.
Okay, here we go. This is going to be like part scenario, part whatever, so you have to react to it. I'm a medium-sized B2B company. We know our competitors, and you don't. Digital marketing dude, go.
You probably don't. There's a little bit of ego involved here. Like, I know my business. I'm the owner of my business. I know who my competitors are. Yada, 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 yada. You probably don't. You probably know who's taking your business. And when your customers come to you and say, XYZ company can offer me a lower price, you probably know who your business competitors are. But if there are people online that are ranking for the keywords you want to own, they're your competitors.
Stop.
Those, just missed it. I almost got the entire thing out. I think I'm getting used to this 20-second span where I can get most of my thoughts out.
I think that you don't have the payoff, man. It ends like you get right there, and then the time says, nope, sorry, Jeff Baker, it's done.
I know I'm like giving you Game of Thrones episodes where you're getting right to something important, and then they're like, nope, wait a week, or wait, in this instance, 2 more years for anything. All right, let's break this down, because this happens all the time, and it happens all the time, especially when you're working with a prospect or a brand new client. They come in and they think they know who their competitors are, and a lot of times they know who their business competitors are. And I need to distinguish the difference between a business competitor and a digital competitor. So a business competitor is somebody that regularly competes for the same products and services that you do. And you can find out who your business competitors are by asking customers. A lot of times customers will tell you, they'll say, oh, well, XYZ company can offer this at a lower price. Or can you offer the same thing as XYZ company that I've been talking to? And this will come up all the time with your BDEs. Anybody that's selling your products and services, they'll learn about who your competitors are from a business standpoint. So let's just define business competitor. Anybody that is speaking with your sales team that can offer your products and services as an alternative to you, and they may steal your business. That's a business competitor. And generally, 99% of the time, clients, prospects that we work with are only concerned with their business competitors. And when they're talking, the problem is when they start delving into digital marketing and they map those business competitors over to their digital marketing efforts, and they say, these are my competitors. A lot of times they're dead freaking wrong. Dead wrong. Digital competitors, completely different animal. So if there is anybody, you can use lots of tools. You can use SEMrush. You can use even more simply, just type into Google the top services and products that you sell. So just go to your landing pages for the services that you sell, the products that you sell, and type that into Google and see who pops up. See who pops up in PPC, see who pops up in the top 5 for organic results. And you're probably going to see companies that you didn't think were competitors. But guess what? If they are ranking for products and services that you do, they are a competitor because they're taking clicks away from you. If they're ranking number 1, they're taking about 30% of all clicks. If they're ranking number 2, they're taking probably about 17% of all clicks, 3, 12%, so on and so forth, all the way down to position 10. And the further you are down, or if you don't exist at all, they're getting the clicks and you're not getting the clicks. So let's just make sense of this here for the people in the back row. If you are selling a product and service and other people are getting the clicks for that product and service, that query for that product and service, you are losing visibility to somebody else. Whether or not they're actually a business competitor of yours that you realize doesn't matter because you're losing that audience.
Is it possible for a company that's pretty, well established in their space and kind of they understand their business competitors? That's again going back to what I said about money. That's kind of, that's the great equalizer, and that's what everyone really cares about. But is it possible for someone who is that established to suddenly have a digital competitor that outranks them? Has that scenario happened where someone, when I say established, I guess I'm saying, they're in there 5, 8 years. They've done this one service or product very well. They have their own, they've been competing against 2 or 3 other people in their market space. But suddenly when they do that exercise that you just talked about, 5 other companies show up based on a couple keywords or keyword phrases. Is that possible?
Yeah, happens all. So let me give you an example of Brafton.com. So we rank for a lot of keywords, and let me just talk about keyword ownership for a second here, because that's basically what we're talking about. Keyword ownership is basically any keyword that's going to help drive traffic to your site and get somebody to possibly convert. So the more ownership, the better. We talked about this previously. These are inroads to your brand, to your site, to get people to consume the blog. And like we mentioned, go down that stupid funnel and consume more content. Now we've got, if you look up who's sharing keywords with us, we've got companies like Skyward, and we've got companies like Curata, and companies like Influence & Co., and Content Marketing Institute. We share a lot of keywords with Content Marketing Institute, and they beat us on a lot of them. Content Marketing Institute doesn't do what we do. They will never, ever take our business. However, that was my dog snoring. However, they own keywords that we want to own, right? So they're taking eyeballs away from us.
Yeah.
People type in content marketing and they're going to find Content Marketing Institute first, and they're going to go to their website, and they're probably not going to come back to search and come to us. So they are not a business competitor. However, they are a major digital competitor because they're taking eyeballs away from us, where people are going to their site and saying, oh, these guys are the authority in content marketing because they were the first people that we saw. They came up first. We associate number one with number one in authority. So we've already lost a little bit of credibility because this non-competitor is actually a digital marketing competitor.
And it kind of goes back into like online perception. Like you said, they're the first thing that pops up automatically. Someone who doesn't know anything about either say, oh, maybe, Content Marketing Institute, they don't, we do. But then they're forced to kind of go back. They got to go back and they got to do their search again. And that action of like going back, or the fact that suddenly you have to retrace your steps to go back to that list, could be enough for someone to get distracted again and then not bother going onto Brafton.com, going through our, list of services and stuff, and never really converting. It seems like it's the battlefield is that minute, that we have all these little small windows that we can get into. And if people have to go back through a window, it's risky. It's already kind of like a potentially lost prospect.
Oh yeah, the competition is ferocious, and it's even more ferocious now that you know that you're not just competing with your business competitors. Like if you looked at one of your business competitors and saw, oh, they don't rank for anything and I rank for everything, I'm killing them.
Yeah.
You can't stop there because there's other companies, like I said, that you don't think are your business competitors and that are taking your keywords. And once they've gotten the click, the chances of somebody coming back and saying, well, let me see what else is out there, goes down exponentially every time they click on a new result. So if you're at the bottom of the page and they've already gone through 3 results, you're done. You've already lost those eyeballs. You've lost that potential customer.
So let's play the client game with you, kind of what you did to me in the last one. You have a client that knows their competitors and, knows their business competitors, and they are convinced that's it. Yet you have found that, they have a slew of digital competitors. How do you approach that conversation? How do you tell the client, again, in a weird kind of similar scenario, you're wrong. The data is saying otherwise. I'm finding out something else. How do you approach that?
You have to get them to say it to themselves. So I would always walk them through a process that makes them arrive at the answer that I'm trying to get them to see. So what I would do is I'd say, all right, turn on your screen share if we're on a WebEx call, and let's just do an experiment here. And I say, go to Google, and I'd say search ABC widget. Just do a quick search. And I'd say, all right, this is the main product that you sell, right? Yes. Okay. Search it. And then first things that pop up, you get 3 PPC results and you get 5 organic results, and they don't pop up anywhere. And I say, where are you? And they say, oh, well, we don't pop up for that. We're ranking for a different keyword. Okay. Why aren't you ranking for this particular keyword, right? You said that you sell this, right? Well, yeah, we sell this, but we don't necessarily call it that. We call it by the product name. So, well, it looks like all of these people are selling it this way. And this is PPC. People are paying for this keyword. Therefore, it is an important keyword, and they're probably selling the product that way. So what's going on here? All of these competitors that you said weren't competitors are owning the keyword that you just told me to search in that is the most valuable thing to your business. So help me connect the dots here.
And that seems like, so that helps. Having them see the data, and the revelation should happen. I mean, I guess it should. I mean, they're seeing everything. They're doing the Google searches themselves. I guess what I'm saying is that it should be obvious. Has that been successful for you in the past? It
has, yeah. And actually, I've done the same thing for people with UX design. Something that didn't work on their website. They're saying, how come people aren't converting? I said, all right, well, let's start at the very beginning. Google your product. Okay. They Googled it. They clicked on a landing page and they went to it. I said, okay, now what do you want me to do? They said, well, okay, I want you to read it. I said, okay, I'm reading. And then they said, all right. I said, what do you want me to do now? And they said, well, I want you to buy something. I said, okay, where? I said, well, do you see that little link down at the bottom of the page where it says contact us? I said, no. I said, all right, well, scroll down and look to the very bottom right. I went down to the very bottom right, and there's a tiny little hyperlink, smaller font than the rest of everything else. I clicked on that, and it brought me to a customer portal. I said, what do I do now? I said, well, now you need to register. Oh, I see what you're saying. And the guy actually, after the phone call, he admitted that he cried after that phone call because it was very, very revealing. Yeah, you get stuck in your website, and you really don't see the forest for the trees, and you don't experience it like the first time for a customer. So I think you get too stuck, and you just need to experience it like a potential customer might experience it. Just Google what it is that you do and see what pops up. It's a very, very simple process, and it's very, very revealing.
Ballpark. How many clients have you made cry?
2. Just 2. That's 2. Not bad.
I remember it distinctly.
5.5, 6 years here. So that's I'm averaging 1 every 3 years, and I don't work with clients anymore. Okay. So I'm hoping to keep it at 2 for the next 4 years or so. I think I'm at a respectable clip.
Okay. Anyway, that was a good recap. We're over on time anyway, so it was a good jump into who are my competitors and so on. And that wraps it up, everyone. That's the show for this week. And as Jeff said, we are going to attempt to do this on a weekly basis. Can't wait to see how well this goes. I want to thank everyone for listening. It's Jeff and I are kind of reacting to everything week by week, seeing what works, what doesn't. Any kind of feedback, any kind of suggestions, please email us at abovethefold@brafton.com. We have an email address now. It's something we probably should have had episode 1, but at least we eventually got there at episode 4.
Send us your complaints. Send us your topic suggestions. Send us your rants. Send us pictures of your dogs. I don't care. Just send us anything. You can also find us on iTunes now, Above the Fold. You can find us on Spotify. We're on SoundCloud. We're on Anchor. We're on other various places, right? Is that where most people listen to it? Oh, yeah. Google Podcasts.
You always forget Google. Yeah. All
right. And you can also find Francis at his correct Twitter handle that he's been sending out the wrong Twitter handle for the past 3 weeks. It is not McFancy. That is his Instagram handle. His correct Twitter handle is what?
It's Studavega. It's at STUDAVEGGA. Apologies. This is partly Jeff's fault because in the beginning he said, "You're McFancy" on Twitter, right? And technically that's the name, but it wasn't the handle. That's my Instagram handle. I'm a fool. That's all you need.
Nailed it. And you can find me at Baker Rhythms. That's Baker_RITHMS on Twitter. Feel free to send your complaints over there, topic suggestions, whatever the hell you want. You got it. Until then, we will see you next week. This has been Above the Fold with Brafton, with Jeff and Francis. We'll catch you next time.
See y'all.